I'm a journalist, I'm not an analyst, I'm not an activist, I'm not a politician. I'm happy to be here to talk about my reporting, what I've seen and heard in Baluchistan over the last few years. I put together this book, Baluchistan at the Crossroads. I'm going to be showing some photographs behind me, taken from the book, photographs by my French collaborator, Mark, who sadly can't be here today. We're starting off with some of the landscapes of Baluchistan, so for those of you that maybe haven't had the chance to visit, you'll get a sense of what the place is like. I've been asked to speak here about regional security implications. I'm not going to give a history lesson. I think we just had a very good one here. But one of the things that people need to bear in mind is that there's a lot of grand theories thrown around about Baluchistan. There's a lot of great power conspiracies, and this is largely because of its location. It is on the border, the Pakistani province of Baluchistan, at least on the border of Iran and Afghanistan. It's a very large area, a lot of different complex situations going on there concurrently. If we're going to discuss regional stability, I think we have to start with the facts, and that's what I'm most comfortable talking about. I'm not going to talk about political theories. My job is to be skeptical, not cynical, but skeptical. And I try not to look at the geopolitics from 30,000 feet, as I think a lot of people in this city might do. I like to talk about what's happening on the ground. In the province that Pakistan calls Baluchistan, there's a relatively small population. It's very sparsely populated. It's mostly desert and mountain. And a significant portion of that population, as you probably gathered from this afternoon, are not thrilled about being part of Pakistan. Several hundred of them, maybe several thousand, if we're being optimistic, have been willing to take up arms and fight a military insurgency against the Pakistani state for their right to self-determination. I would say that most of them that I've encountered do seem to enjoy a degree of support from the local population. That's allowed them to continue. But the situation there is far from black and white. There's no good guys and bad guys that are very clear to distinguish between. There are different armed groups acting in different territories with different agendas, different tactics, and sometimes against very different opponents. There are militant nationalists attacking Pakistani military and government infrastructure. There are other nationalists who target those of different ethnicities, even if they're civilians. There are Sunni extremists who kidnap and kill Shia pilgrims. There are unknown members of state security agencies we've heard a lot about who kidnap and dump, often do so with impunity. And that impunity is one of the major problems in Baluchistan for all of these actors, is that there is no rule of law. The police are ineffectual, the frontier corps are a law unto themselves, and the military seem to do as they wish also. Going through some of these photographs, I wouldn't mind stopping occasionally just to explain some of the scenes you're seeing. A lot of these at the moment refer to displaced populations, and when we start to talk about regional security, the fact that large numbers of people are being driven from their homes is having an effect on the region. The Baluch I've focused on in this book are inside the modern state of Pakistan, but there are obviously Baluch in other areas of the world, the growing diaspora. I'm just going to stop at this photograph here to talk about the fact that you've heard about some of the disappearances, the enforced disappearances. This is a woman whose husband vanished one day and has not come home. And she's one of hundreds, maybe thousands of these women in Baluchistan, with human face being put on this story you've been hearing about this afternoon. And it's a very tragic one that I've encountered innumerable times in the province. Talking about why this is not a bigger story on the world stage, I think it's important to note that operating there as a journalist is probably one of the most difficult assignments I've ever had, and I've been to some very difficult places over the years. Even getting into Baluchistan now as a non-Pakistani journalist is almost impossible because of the military agencies that control access to the region. When you try to enter without a valid visa, you'll be arrested, and you won't get a valid visa. If you're a local journalist, you're in even graver danger. Over the last 4 or 5 years, at least 24 Baluch journalists have been killed, mostly by state authorities, but in some cases by militant nationalists who disagreed with their viewpoints, what they've written about. So the threat to journalism is one of the biggest threats to understanding what's going on there. It's very difficult to get reliable information out of the province, and consequently, these occasions such as today are few and far between where people actually learn a little bit more about what's happening there. As you can probably gather from some of these photographs, there's a real groundswell of support for some of the militant movements there, and that destabilizes an already fragile security situation to such an extent that other parts of Pakistan, which are a big concern to would-be allies of Pakistan, are themselves even more fragile. I don't really know what else I can add to this conversation. As I said, I'm not going to talk about the geopolitics. I'm going to let a lot of these photos speak for themselves. But from my experiences traveling and reporting in Baluchistan, people are absolutely desperate for change. When I first went there in 2007, a lot of people talked about autonomy. They wanted freedom to govern themselves, to determine their own future, but were willing to do so within the current framework of Pakistan. In the last 7 years, most people I know who maybe began with that desire have now moved on to one of independence. And I think that realistically, that's going to be an absolute uphill struggle for all of them. But that uncertainty is meaning that, for instance, foreign investors are very unlikely to look at Baluchistan as a place to spend their money. We hear a lot about these fantastic natural resources there, but no reputable Western company is going to go in there at the moment, both because of the security situation, also the uncertainty of governance in Pakistan generally. You see some of the coal mines here, they're positively medieval when you visit them. So the idea of developing huge modern mining infrastructure, which costs billions of dollars, is not something that any Western company is going to be willing to do. I'm going to end it there. Just bear in mind, please, that proceeds from the book here, my proceeds from the book, are going to be going to polio eradication in the province of Baluchistan. I'm not allowed to name the organizations involved in that because of security concerns, but I won't be receiving a penny from these books, so I really would urge you to come and buy one at the end of this. Thank you very much.